look around and you go, is anybody else seeing what I'm seeing? Because what I'm seeing now, and of course nothing is gay now, it's all queer, which basically means either drag queens or, the pronoun people. So eventually I'm hoping that this will be exposed for the trend that it is. And I think the fight will get more insane and possibly more dangerous.
Was it related to JK Rowling?
So suddenly I wake up one day, they started erasing my name and my face off the CDs. He's a transphobe. We've sacked him. But you will respect my sexuality, you will respect my pronouns, you will do this, you will do that. I won't be pushed around, I just won't be.
For those who don't know, the very few, maybe non-Brit, I don't even know, what are you famous for, James Dreyfus?
That's such a good question. Briefly, I think I'm most famous for those over-the-top camp characters that I did in Ab Fab and Gimme 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 and Thin Blue Line. And then I suppose it's Notting Hill. And then I've done a sort of lot of theatre in between, but that never seems to matter to anyone. So I think I'm most famous for that.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up watching Gimme Gimme Gimme. I grew up obviously Notting Hill, the library person,
The library guy,
bookshop guy.
Bookshop.
The bookshop guy.
Yes, it's a bookshop guy.
Bookshop's there, isn't it? But I don't know if it's the real bookshop, is it? They call it.
No, I think it's gone. I think it's gone now. I keep getting told it's gone and then it's there, but actually it was a replica of the bookshop. I mean, we filmed it inside the bookshop and in the studio. So.
Do you still know Hugh Grant? Could you?
We still are in touch, and thank God he was in the movie because it was just me and him for 3 days, and he was immensely entertaining.
Oh,
yeah, wonderful man.
I'm told I look like a young Hugh Grant.
Well, you could do worse. Frankly,
handsome man, Hugh Grant.
He's a very handsome man.
I'll take that. That's why I tell everyone.
Take it, Andrew. Take it.
So, in many respects, you were one of the faces that spearheaded the push for individual liberty. I think, as an actor who sometimes played, as you say, overtly camp characters and gay roles, other times more subtle characters. Where has this all gone wrong in the last few years? Where has it gone so far that one has to now conform to something?
Oh, crikey. This will give you some perspective. When I did Gimme Gimme Gimme, I was when I did Thin Blue Line, and it was very clear that my character was straight and in love with another police officer, a female police officer, still called in the press the gay one. When I did Gimme Gimme Gimme, I was told, oh, it's so over the top and camp and everything, because it was an over the top comedy. Now, if I played it sort of normal and think it wouldn't have worked. I had to match Kathy in what Kath was doing. But the one positive thing about it was that it was the first time I'd been able to play someone who was gay, and that wasn't an issue. It wasn't the main thing. He was absolutely happy with it. And also, he wasn't a particularly likable character. Well, the gay press did not like that one bit. And I was hauled over the coals by them pretty much for the whole of my career. I've not had the support or anything of the gay press. And now looking at television, I think it was a master study in the tiniest most subtle performance you could ever give. It was Daniel Day-Lewis standard by what you see now.
Yeah.
And of course, nothing is gay now. It's all queer, which basically means either drag queens or, the pronoun people.
It must be frustrating for you because it feels like it's never the sort of right time for people to critically be happy with what you've done, or the gay community at least.
Well, we've regressed. I mean, the whole point was we were aiming towards equality. This was the lie that Stonewall fed us. Was I remember high kicking with the Tiller Girls and Peter Tatchell and Stephen Fry at the Albert Hall, doing a Stonewall show called The Equality Show. And they used to say, well, what's the outcome you'd love the most? The outcome I'd love the most would be to be called an actor and not openly gay actor. To have that label dropped, to be treated like everyone else, not protected under a sort of, the cloak of, oh, you're gay, let's tread around you, treat me exactly the same as everybody else. This is what I was led to believe. How far have we strayed from that now? It's mind-blowing.
Do you think it is a pendulum that sort of goes this way and that?
I'm not sure if it's this way and that. I think it's more secular. I think it's more secular. I think it's something that's going to go round and reach a top. And then we might sort of be there at the moment, but the point is no one's going to back down without a major fight. And I think the fight will get more insane. And possibly more dangerous for a while yet, but certainly people are waking up.
Yeah, it's a real clash at the moment about, as I say, it feels like what you and I represent in this, because I think we agree on this. It felt like an individual liberty aspect for me. You can be whoever you want to be. You are an individual. And if you're an actor, you can be the one who plays the overtly camp character, and you can be the one who plays something completely different. Precisely. I suppose we might draw a line at blacking up and...
Yes. I mean, obviously. I mean, but then again, I think there's a difference. The characters in Little Britain, were very funny. And I have, black friends who also thought it was very funny. I mean, I think there's a difference between, going, blacking up and making a character. After all, Rory Bremner used to do a very famous impression of Trevor McDonald, which was respectful, and it wasn't, it wasn't to humiliate or anything. He was imitating him. I asked the question the other day, isn't it interesting how we no longer see impressionists on the television? And they used to be a staple. I mean, regularly you'd have impressionists coming up, and they've seemed to have vanished alongside shows like Spitting Image, which now be seen as one of the most unkind programs ever, because but this is where we are. You can't really say much. You can say it like Ricky Gervais says you can say it, but expect a lot of trash to come along with it.
Well, he's covered because he's so famous and successful that he can do his own thing. He can just go, fuck you guys, I'm going to make my own show. That's what I'm trying to build with this YouTube. But the vast majority of people can't do that. And the vast majority of people are not famous actors such as yourself, are they? They're just people at work. I've had so many messages from people who said, someone got in touch with me to try and, because I'm Jewish, they've asked, they'd use what's called the Y word at work, which is Yid, about the football Tottenham manager, because they use that word sometimes. And this woman had used it like, come on, the Yids or something, and she got fired. And she messaged me going, can you help me? And I said, I don't know what I can do, really.
No, I know.
But this is just an ordinary person who's not Ricky Gervais.
I see your point completely, and I get the similar messages, but with other other pleas from people.
Well, what kinds of things do people say to you that's happened to them?
Well, having a look to go along with, let's just take an example, having to go along with preferred pronouns in emails, and what you do when you receive one of those, because it's nothing more than a test. It's a purity test, because if you ignore it, you're going to get people saying, he ignored that, and I put them specifically in that email, and he did not respond, use it. Or you play along with it. Once you play along with it, it's essentially a gateway to more madness and to more things. I mean, I read an email the other day that was directed at someone saying, you will respect my I want to say authority, but no, but you will respect my sexuality, you will respect my pronouns, you will do this, you will do that. And to quite a well-known person on Twitter who responded, you know something, I'm a very open-minded person, and I do have respect for people, but there becomes a limit. When you start telling me what to do, say, and think, I don't feel I have to go any further, which I thought was an excellent answer. But that's never going to be enough, because it now has precedence over everything else. Now if you say you're non-binary, you're at the top of the stack. You put on a pair, if you're a girl, you put on a pair of underpants on the cover of Vanity Fair, going like, you are the worshipped one. and everybody else has to do. And so eventually I'm hoping that this will be exposed for the trend that it is. It's rather like punk rock and goths back in the day. We did it where we identified with things and people. We didn't identify as them. And that's the main difference, is because it's nothing more than basically fashion. I mean, what is non-binary apart from wearing dungarees and getting a haircut?
I've got big news. Heretics is expanding to Substack. I'll be writing weekly articles about the madness of the woke mind virus, and also giving out little snippets and things I've learned from episodes with new guests that haven't even gone live on YouTube yet. In just 6 months, you grew this community from 0 to 150,000 subscribers. But Heretics is expensive to run. With its camera team, guest booker, production assistant, top-of-the-range 4K cameras, moving sliders, editors, and social media, it costs about £10,000 or $13,000 a month. How can you help? Well, I don't want to rely on ads. You, the viewers, are the economic engine that will drive Heretics to the next level. I'm talking about tours, time to make longer episodes, and bigger guests. This month on Substack, I am writing about the email I received that cancelled me from my own book tour, the 10 signs that gender ideology is a cult, and whether Britain and the US are racist countries. You'll also get the ad-free podcast early and be able to ask questions to my guests, so you'll really be part of the Heretics community. Most of the content is free, with perks for paid members. My first article is up now, and it's something I've been holding back and wanting to get off my chest for a long time. So go and sign up on andrewgoldheretics.substack.com. Do you think some of us are maybe naturally contrarian? Maybe half the population's that way and half like to fall in line with a particular fashion that's going on. And I'm just thinking of, I got married recently and everybody started saying, oh, you should have these. And the more they said that, the more I went, not having that. And I think I was at school, it was the same. And I know that you were the same as well. I mean, you must have been at school. And then I get on with people like that as well.
Yes,
and then some people fall in line.
No, I mean, I've always been like that. You tell me to sit down, I'll stand up.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but I won't be pushed around. I just won't be. And I've been like that since I was a kid, apparently, according to my mother, who still tells me.
We told you to come in tomorrow and you came in yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. I just like you, I have it in me. But I do know a lot of people that just want a quiet life and... which is fine, absolutely fine. But until the point where you look around and you go, is anybody else seeing what I'm seeing? Because what I'm seeing now is barking. I mean, let's just talk briefly about Sadiq Khan's campaign to put a woman who's cut her breasts off and got marks here up whilst taking down pictures of girls who are beach body ready. Now, what are you doing? What message are you sending? The message on Mermaid's website saying the scars that you have here and here are as beautiful as the scars you have that you've marked up your arms. I mean, that's on their website. So we're now saying to primarily girls, celebrate it. Cut yourself and celebrate it. I mean, really? I mean, have we lost it that far? And because we're all tied together, it wouldn't be so much of a problem if the LGBTQ plus hadn't lassoed us all together. That's why so many gay people are saying, look, we've got nothing against the transsexuals. I think they had their cause hijacked. I said it's the TRAs and the Q plus that are the problem, because essentially there's nothing in common anymore. I mean, there never was in the first place. Same-sex attracted, a million other problems. Not better, not worse, just different. And so when you see behavior like that being celebrated, it ties on to us and it affects us all. And when the backlash happens, and the backlash is happening now, if you look in America, and because they're ahead of us, there's massive backlash going on there. We're all getting, and I get messages saying, you better divorce yourself quickly. I said, I've been trying to do that for 10 years. I said, this is what we're trying to do. Don't think that gay people are, just always want to walk down the street, start naked, and do this in front of children. It's not what used to happen at Pride. So we're all being lassoed. It's like they want us all on the same dinghy, and then they want to plunge a fork into the side and take us all down. And I'm no, not on my watch.
Which is, it's really sad actually, because you've been documented speaking out against this for a long time. A lot of people who are gay have been. Andrew Doyle is another example.
Yep.
So many people don't want this. I imagine Stephen Fry, I mean, he's a little bit careful because he's got a lot of mainstream obligations, I think, but he doesn't like a lot of the woke stuff, does he?
I mean, I don't know. I haven't spoken. I would imagine not, but I haven't spoken to Stephen for a very long time. But I know he once had, ties to Stonewall, just sort of probably social ties. But these people are in a very tricky position now because they're seeing the writing on the wall. And, my opposition to Stonewall is only since 2014. I equate Stonewall to being like Cujo, wonderful, beautiful dog once upon a time, got bitten by a bat going down rabbit holes and unfortunately just loses his mind.
We should say what Stonewall is for non-Brits. Stonewall.
A Stonewall. It was up until 2014 the main lobby group for LGBT rights. So, and it achieved equality. So I would have thought the next step would have been to, look at countries that still kill people for being gay, move on to that, but still remain same-sex attracted around that, because to involve the T and the Q and the I, no intersex people want to be on that list. No intersex people. So it's forced teaming, and then they don't quite understand that there are many of us. It's not that we don't want them, it's that you've got to understand their behaviors is, the misogyny and the homophobia that come from TRAs is staggering.
Trans rights activists, TRAs.
TRAs, and they are very different from, transsexuals. With this trans people thing, I want to know who you're talking about. Are you talking about transsexuals? Are you talking about transvestites? Are you talking about gendered? Are you talking about non-binary? Are you talking about transmasc? There's so many things under the umbrella that I think now you've got to start saying, well, when you say trans, who are you speaking for? Because you're tarring everyone else with the brush if you decide to send death threats to JK Rowling. Most transsexuals don't do that. TRAs, very often straight, white men, do. So I think there's a lot of misogyny and a lot of homophobia, and especially directed at those LGBT people at the moment who are saying, you know what, we've had enough.
I agree. There's a lot of that on the woke left at the moment. It was a really interesting point you make, actually. I've been thinking a lot recently about in history, sort of bureaucrats who are trying to achieve some sort of demographic equality or whatever it might be. Once they've achieved their goal, well, they're incentivized to keep their jobs. Otherwise, they don't have a job. But a DEI diversity officer, what do they do when everything's, and you see they start to say like, oh, well, there's not the same number of women who are electricians now at the BBC. And it's like, oh, for God's sake. Well, that's, there are not enough men in makeup now. Ridiculous. That's what they are actually. They're pushing for that. But you make a really interesting point with regards to Stonewall. There was an open goal there of like, okay, we got basically what we wanted here. There's always going to be some people who are homophobic or whatever it might be, but let's look at other countries. And the worst possible things happened because there's actually been more of an alliance with those countries. I'm thinking of Queers for Palestine.
Absolutely. But they knew this was going to happen. They knew it. Ruth Hunt said, we have decided, and we know there's going to be some opposition to this and some people who aren't happy, but we feel this is the way to go. So, okay, if you know you're going to make a decision that's going to piss off a lot of people, then don't be surprised when those pissed off people open their mouths and say, you got this one wrong, and we've been telling you for a long time. Now, it's taken 10 years for her to stand up and say, oh, I'm sorry, we got it a bit wrong on puberty blockers. Well, how much damage? I mean, how much do they think these children are collateral damage? How much is enough? One girl, rape in changing rooms, is one girl too many. We've got to a stage now where this ideology is so ingrained, and and you've got people actually texting publicly, tweeting publicly at companies for not flying the pride flag. Saying things like, "Well, if you don't put a pride flag up, how on earth will LGBTQ plus XYZ people know that they're safe?" I mean, do you want to talk about safety? Safety, homophobia back in the day was getting your head kicked in and being called a queer. That's what homophobia was. Homophobia was, checking after you come out of a club that it's safe to get into your taxi. That's what marginalization and true homophobia is. Now, transphobia is so fragile that that man in full makeup tweeted a train company a while back, going, "I was glared at by one of your staff."
Yeah.
And it became a huge thing. And you think, you were glared at. You were glared at. But you're wearing, makeup. People are going to look. It's like if you go out wearing a funny hat, people are going to look. But my God, the fragility at the moment is just beyond belief. I mean,
I think about this a lot because I've told the story before, so apologies to people bored on the podcast, but I was at Berlin. Apologies to all the people, but I should apologize every 5 minutes to people who are bored on the podcast. But I was at Gay Pride in Berlin. I lived in Berlin for a few years, and I thought, I'll pop along, why not? And it was before this had all got that mad. It was 5 years ago, or so I thought anyway.
Yeah.
And I looked down to my right, and there's a fella giving another fella a blowjob. And I had never seen that in real life. I've seen pictures of that kind of thing by accident or whatever it might be. But I never, and it was quite shocking, as it would be a man doing cunnilingus on a woman right next to me, a fully fleshed vagina out in public where children are walking around. And I just thought, I felt so sad for people like yourself or like me or like any of us who have respect for the idea of the fight for civil rights that gay people went through to get equality, to be able to be with a consenting adult, it's such a dignified fight. And what has that become?
Well, what I think it is? It's ever since there used to be a club and a space for everyone. There used to be fetish clubs. There used to be clubs for this. There used to be clubs for that. There used to be clubs that anyone could go to. There used to be male-only clubs. There used to be female-only. There were male kink clubs. So every person was catered for, every single person. And that's where you acted out your fetish if you so chose. And it was a social contract. We all knew, everyone understood, and it was fine. If you go to that club, you're gonna, get involved in that. Now it seems the queer theory and the gender ideology that is being pushed, which is, queer theory is all about tearing down the societal norms, tearing down the heteronormative lifestyle, just tearing it apart. Most important thing of all is getting the children. Get the children to accept this, because it's not just a question of putting in a book, kids. There are men that like men, there are women that like women, and there are men that like women, and they exist, and that's all. If it was just that, no one would be making any fuss at all. It isn't just that. It's graphic cartoons. It's drag. I mean, people say to me, "Well, what's wrong with drag queen story? What's wrong with having drag queens thing?" And I think to myself, yeah, but how did you go from granny or clowns or magicians to drag queens? Was there no other jump that you could get there? I mean, why drag queen? I don't understand it unless there's something behind it, and which is, of course, queer theory and gender ideology. Because they could say, well, you've been to the pantomime, haven't you? Well, yes, I've been to the pantomime, but the pantomime dame wasn't wearing a thong and had its tits out and doing twerking around. I'm sorry, but there's a big difference. And you think, why? I don't understand how we got from teaching the books that I read, Peter and Jane, Spot the Ball, all these, sort of fairly generic things, learning how to cook or being aware of traffic. now it seems like there's a very definite path, and we all see it. And it's amazing how this is sort of being allowed simply because someone is different. There's the expression, don't yuck someone's yum.
Oh, yes. Did you see that video the other day about bestiality?
Yes, I did. I just couldn't believe what I was listening
This
to.
was a woman.
This
Go
was a woman. This came from the what was it? The psychiatrist. It was a sexual psychiatrist company over here, and she was up in the top corner, and there were lots of pictures of dogs and people and these puppy play people, and basically her basic point was this: animals don't consent to anything. So saying that animals don't consent is no type of argument at all. So I said, well, infants can't and don't consent. And then I thought to myself, well, is this where we're going? Is this because I have seen a TED talk by somebody who made precisely this, was saying, now let's treat pedophiles as, it's a different sexuality. No, it's not. Neither's bestiality, and neither is doing a golden retriever. I mean, this was legal in Denmark until 5 years ago. Legal. They had dog brothels in Denmark.
They didn't.
Yes, they did. I think it was Denmark or Norway, one of the places. They had dog brothels, and there are pictures that you could find. Look it up.
I can't believe this.
And there are the most horrifying pictures of what happened to these dogs.
Oh my God!
Yeah. So this is something.
Wow.
You normalize that, you're going to normalize anything.
Yeah, Denmark, this is from 2015, has become one of the last European countries to ban bestiality. Until the new law passed on Tuesday, sex with animals was still legal in the country as long as the animal was unharmed. Wow.
Unharmed. And you see, I tell you something, if you're brave enough, I took a look once and it upset me so much I couldn't sleep for 4 days. If you see the damage done to these dogs, it's horrendous.
Oh my God.
So my point is that this is just the start of something, because if you say yes to that, it's not a great leap forward to say, well, there are certain people, don't yuck their yum, don't yuck their yum. Something, yeah, it's about time you started yucking people's yums and saying, let's go back to the time where everyone didn't want in on anyone else's space and where everyone had a place to go and be their authentic selves. Because frankly, if I'm at work, I don't want your fucking authentic, I don't want your bloody authentic self come skipping around. Just do your work. Do your work. I don't need to know anything about you. Do your work. And then later, down the pub or in a club, authenticate yourself as much as you like. But we've lost that, like I said, that social contract of how one behaves around each other. And of course, one group is put above any other group. And I just think it's just ridiculous, just ridiculous.
Did you see what Kirsty Young interviewing Grayson Perry? And she made this great, I think it was Kirsty Young anyway, she made this great point and she said, do you think some people don't like the way? And Grayson Perry, for anyone who doesn't know, is a would you say transvestite? Is that what artist transvestite?
He says on his page, I'm a transvestite. Yeah.
Okay. Well, she said, do you think some people are not, don't like what you're doing because they feel that what you're doing is engaging them in a sexual act by sort of being there or being witness to and they haven't consented to being part of it? And Grayson Perry said, yes, that is very much part of what the whole thing is. And so it is this thing of like you said, you're at work and you've got Grayson Perry running around with a dildo on. What's going on?
Oh, I didn't see. I didn't.
He had a dildo on at a children's charity.
Oh, I did not know.
I'm going to find it.
Well, I just think, for a children's charity.
Well, I just know the children's charity was in the background. That's all I know about it. I've seen this picture. Hang on, yeah.
Where you see, but why? I mean, why could I don't understand? Okay, nothing wrong with the coat. He can wear what he likes.
Coat's lovely.
The coat's fine, but I don't understand that because that's making a statement without saying a word, isn't it? I mean,
a woman couldn't do that. Walk around to a charity with a dildo strapped on. If Grayson wants to be saying I'm dressing like a woman, what woman would get away with dressing like that?
They wouldn't.
And that's a point that a friend of mine who's a lawyer, who's a woman, because there's a famous lawyer in America now who's a trans lawyer and has the ridiculous huge boobs, everything.
Oh yes, I've seen.
Yeah.
Yes, I've seen that that individual. Yes.
Well, she said, what woman would get away with acting, behaving, and speaking in that way?
Well, I mean, let's go back to the famous wood shop teacher.
Oh, the boobs as well.
I mean, I still can't work out whether that was
trolling or not.
Trolling? I mean, was it him just going, right, okay, let's see how I get away with it, because that's what's going to start happening. Is and in bathrooms, I've seen people sort of begin to, men begin to use them and say things like, when challenged, saying, "Well, I identify as a woman. You know what? You can't challenge me on this." So it's self-ID. That's another thing entirely, which, people seem to think that we live in a world where no nefarious criminal men might look at that and go, now that's quite a good loophole, because all I have to do. Okay, so I'm not saying all trans people are
no, of
men.
course.
I'm saying criminal men will use this for greater access, or just to be in a changing room, whilst 13-year-old girls are girls are already going through hell at colleges all over America. They won't use the bathroom. They're suffering from period pains. They're getting dehydrated because they will not use the bathrooms. They go home, and they're taking the Imodium. Left, right, and centre, and they're doing all. I remember, having my sister and my cousins, of how difficult it was as a teenage boy, let alone a teenage girl. Have we forgotten? Have we forgotten that this is the teen years are the most turbulent, emotionally disturbing, where everything is on a grand scale. Your first love, your first this, your first that. Have we forgotten all that? And do we now just think, well, they're just girls, so shut up and sit down. Artemis would like to join your sorority.
Are you saying that the Imodium and stuff because they don't want to go to the bathrooms because there's now boys in them?
Yeah. Yeah,
it's terrible.
And obviously, they have that added difficulty and the added thing of having periods. Young girls with a period. It's a very sensitive time. It's a time where they need privacy. You need privacy and dignity. And I think we've stripped that away from women, and we've stripped it away from girls, and we have given them no option, no say. For your daughter to go to school and for it to start, it's a huge deal. And I think we've forgotten, or some people just simply don't care.
Yeah.
And I think I think it's awful.
I think, and then people say, with regards to what you were saying about letting potential criminals go into the bathrooms, I think the response is often, well, just a bit of red tape isn't going to stop a criminal who wants to. But that's not why we make law. Let's not make any law then. Let's not make any rule, because everyone's going to just break them anyway.
It's a ridiculous argument. It's an utterly ridiculous argument, because we're not just talking about bathrooms. We're talking about, places, tucked behind a Sainsbury's car park. And then we're not talking about things where everyone wanders in. Oh, I have a gender neutral toilet in your home. Oh, do you? Well, let me know when I can, what times are open, because I'll come and use it tomorrow.
When you're in it.
When you're in it.
Yeah.
It's the most, yet people still make this argument. It's about respect. It's about respecting women's boundaries.
Yeah.
And women are saying, look, we fought for these rights. We fought for all this. Look how long it took women to get football teams sorted. Look how long it took them to be allowed to do all these things of achieving equality. And now there's a group that comes in and says, trans rights are human rights, which I completely believe they are. But tell me which rights you don't have. And do you actually believe that trans rights are human rights means that your rights get to impinge on another group's rights? Because that's not how it works. You can't bully your way into. And people saying it's just like the fight for gay rights. Nonsense. We made no demands apart from treat us, don't hate us, don't call us AIDS-infested faggots in the newspaper every day, don't kick our heads in. don't make us have to go to clubs and, signal to each other with handkerchiefs just so we can communicate. There's a big difference in what we fought for and what has been going on since 2014.
Dignity as well is it's something you've said a few times, and it's great because I've spoken about this so many times with so many people, and it's great that there are so many different angles and ways of looking at things. And I think people often speak about the safety factor with women's bathrooms, girls' bathrooms, which is vitally important.
Yes.
But dignity,
Yeah.
when you're going through very difficult things and things, sometimes you just don't want. I don't want, if I'm in a sort of situation. And it's nowhere near as bad for me as a sort of bloke. I don't care. I'm not that sensitive or anything like that. But if I were to be seen by a doctor or nurse or something like that, I prefer it to be a man because it's a dignity thing. It's like, you've got the same bits as me.
Absolutely. I mean, if you were at school, let's go back to your school days. You being 13, let's say. Let's just say you were fine with, other 13-year-old boys getting changed to go swimming or go have a shower or something. Now you imagine you've got girls in there.
Oh, no way.
How would you have, and we're talking now the other way around.
Yeah.
How would you felt about your body, age
Terrible.
30, right.
I did anyway, and it would have been even worse.
Exactly. Me too. It was, in the corner time. Now now swap that around and imagine what it's like for a girl. Some girls have trouble getting changed in front of other girls because they might be a bit plumper, they might be a bit skinnier, they might be, not the ideal shape, we all have issues.
Yeah.
But
I get funny in front of other men even. Yeah. I get the David Lloyd or whatever, some people are just very comfortable standing in front of my face with their willy out.
I know.
And I get a bit in the corner, don't want anyone.
I know. And you're a bit like I can't. Can you just put something on and then we'll talk? I mean, I'm the same way,
I think they're showing off about their comfort.
I think, but they do it, don't they? They do it as they're blowing their hair, and and it's woggling, and you think, I don't need to see it. But if you actually look, if you actually go back to, if you're on a tube, and it's and a straight couple start Frenching in front of you. I get as equally annoyed. I think, can you just wait until you get off? Because I don't need to hear.
Yep. And some of us aren't getting it that much, all right? Exactly. So fuck off.
But we used to understand this. We used to sort of, it's fine on a Friday night. We've had a bit too much to drink. Yeah, okay. But I've just noticed, that it's a sort of taunting thing now. It's because I can, I will. And you think, just rein it in a bit. Just rein it in a bit. Let's get back to sort of behaving with a bit of respect for one another and a bit of dignity, because it's missing.
Yeah. Or don't be like that and let us criticize it without us then being labeled as some sort of bigot. People can do things we don't like and we can criticize it.
Absolutely. And that doesn't turn you into a far right Nazi pedophile. It's become ridiculous now. And it's totally denigrated the real meaning of the word transphobia. If a transsexual gets bashed in the street and called horrible names, that's just disgusting, and it's horrible, and that is transphobia. That's part of being transphobia. Being called a tranny or something like that is horrible and nasty. And
that trans child was killed recently. Was it a few months ago?
But apparently they found out it wasn't to do with the trans situation. But that's neither here nor there. Someone's dead. And
horrible.
And it's awful. But this is, you use the word too much over nothing, you totally denigrate the meaning of the word. It's the cried wolf situation. Eventually you've heard it enough times, people just go, oh yeah, well, that happened. And it desensitizes everyone to the real homophobia and the real phobias of the world, because it's a very easy word to use, and most of it is designed just to make you go.
Thought
and I won. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go on.
No. It's designed for you to go. Shush, be quiet. Because there's nothing you can come back if I say you're a racist. What can you come back with? No, I'm not. Well, you are.
Thought terminating. Thought terminating cliches.
It's exactly what it is.
Cults. So what happened? Take me to this your story of you a few years ago. Was it related to JK Rowling? Rowling?
Talking about the audio thing.
Yeah. What happened? And then what happened? What was the reaction to you in the industry, acting industry?
Okay. I'll make this very brief. Basically, I was playing the master for Big Finish Audio, which is a Doctor Who audio company. And it seemed to be going absolutely fine. And, they seemed to be very happy with what I was doing. And then when I got sent the CDs, I noticed my name. Sorry. Let me just first add that I got contacted by Graham Linhan,
Okay.
who asked me to sign a letter condemning the daily abuse that JK Rowling gets. Now, I looked online. I wasn't really aware of what was going on. And I thought, God, that's terrible. I said, of course I'll sign, thinking they'd have so many signatures because it's a normal thing. You condemn, And then he asked me to sign a thing about Stonewall, who'd said no debate. And I said, no, we should have debate. That's what it's all about. We should just talk and talk and talk. So I signed that thinking, no, it's great because everyone will sign it. No. So suddenly I wake up one day, they started erasing my name and my face off the CDs. And then they did this last one called Masterful, where they included all the masters and they'd left me off completely. So it was like they'd totally erased me. So eventually I got my agent to call them and say, look, I know there's something going on. Just tell them to fess up to it now. Well, we think he's being a bit transphobic and because he supported JK Rowling. And I sent them a tweet and I said, oh, for goodness sake, come on. I'm defending myself online because I'm getting called a transphobe every day by people that listen to your show. Can you at least have my back or something? Next day, statement. We here at Big Finish are a inclusive and diverse company, and we do not endorse transphobia in any way. So basically saying, he's a transphobe, we've sacked him. So of course, that a lie goes around the world whilst the truth is still doing its boots up. And I, to this day, keep saying, you'd say I'm a transphobe? Fine, I don't lock my Twitter. None of the articles or interviews I've ever done. Find me one thing. And then I always remember to myself, oh yeah, JK Rowling says exactly the same.
Yeah.
Find it, and it doesn't exist. But she's already tarred with the brush. We're all tarred with the brush. Because any dissension in any way, shape or form, or any questioning of this new thing is a form of transphobia. You'll see it, when some transsexuals who have what's the name of the guy in America, the Caitlyn Jenner, got attacked as a transphobe. Martina Navratilova, who came out in 1981. I mean, astonishing. She's now called a transphobe, a homophobe, a lesbophobe, a phobe. But it's astonishing, and by people who know nothing about our history at all.
I've got Reddit lists, all subreddits, and about Andrew Gold's transphobia. I went, what was it? Oh, those disinvitations recently because I had a book out, nothing to do with the culture wars and gender. It was about authoritarianism and suppression, which is ironic because when it came out and I didn't mention trans or gender in any, I had loads of invites to speak at the Tate, to speak at various different museums, and it was very exciting for me because it was a chance to finally sort of be in the mainstream bit, not always just the alternative, the mainstream as well. And every single one of them, it's like one of them found out, they'd looked into my YouTube, and then one after another sent messages to Pam Macmillan and said, we're disinviting Andrew, he's a controversial figure. And the thing is that, and I think I was talking to you a little bit before we started recording about this, but we're sort of trained a bit to talk about it with bravado and humor because it's the only way you can, really. It's so ridiculous, all of this. But it hurt like hell. Like when you're reading that email, like later you can go, oh God, and it found me new friends and more people sided up with me. But in the moment, bloody hell, it's like my insides were being ripped out. So when you suddenly had all this happen to you, what was happening inside?
My heart, it's like your heart drops and you get that sort of, what? And you begin to sweat and you think, what? I'm on the phone to people going, what? But hang on, what's going on? And it snowballs out of your control. And it caused me numerous sleepless nights and having to defend myself about this. I thought it'll be easy because I'll just say, find me evidence, but it's never that easy. And I realized And then poor Graham, he still thinks, he's the one that, is responsible for it. He's not, because I would have woken up pretty darn quickly as to what's going on once I looked around on social media. So it's not him at all, but he alerted me to what was actually happening. But I thought for a while, especially after the first TRA attack, which was relentless and went on for about 48 hours. It was deeply horrible, deeply, and Andrew Doyle, I believe, said something like when he was still a comic, that he would go into a room and the people would sort of part, slowly move away from him or have conversations. And he noticed it quite a lot. And that hurts, And I've got a lot of my friends, my colleagues who are really, nice to my face, but I always think to myself, yeah, but where were you? But I get secret messages, so that sort of that does, and I can't blame people who work in the industry because they've seen what happens.
Yeah, I've had a few of those as well. Some of the sort of famousy people, and they'll message, and they say, "I'm really sorry, I can't go. I've got my kids to feed."
I know.
And I understand that.
I know.
I think, and you think of Andrew Doyle, and Andrew Doyle's, now he's this big name, he's got his own show and all of these things. But a few years ago, that wasn't the case. And it would have been horrible to go into this room and people move away. I was just in Sitges outside Barcelona. Do you know, it's a popular gay spot as it happens, sort of the
Yes,
Brighton.
I've avoided it for years.
We went there because it's a beautiful place, regardless of who's doing whatever. But we happened to meet a few people who were friends of my wife, and there was a gay couple, and they were a lovely couple. There's nothing, fine. And they said, and I was preparing as we're speaking, because I knew at some point they said, so what do you do? And I thought, oh God, I don't want them at the table going to the YouTube and finding it and seeing the titles, which are a bit sensationalist because they have to be. So I just said, I wrote a book about the psychology of secrets. And they were like, oh, really? And anything else? A film about exorcism for the BBC, and that's it. And don't look up any. And they're starting putting Andrew Gold in. Luckily, there's a singer with my name as well. He died years ago. Do you know Andrew Gold? Thank you for being a friend. Thank you for being a friend. Yeah, it's Andrew Gold.
The Golden Girls.
No, yes, but Andrew Gold, I think, did the original.
Oh, he did the original?
Or the other way around.
Yeah. Well, you could have just claimed. Yes.
I'm him.
I'm that one.
I'm the dead one, unfortunately. America. He played with the Beatles, 10cc, I think he played with.
Did he? Right.
Never Let Her Slip Away was another. He did the Mad About You theme tune as well.
Oh, okay.
Tell me why. Da, 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 da.
But did they buy the fact that...
Not that I was him, no. But they just left it at that. And I don't know if they were like, oh, and also what's this thing about trans... Because the problem is, you said, show me one thing I've said that's transphobic. Well, by the modern definition, when I say things like, well, trans women are not women, that is transphobic.
Yeah. Well, being gay, by default, is being only exclusively attracted to men is by default transphobic. I've been told that numerous times. You are, by default, transphobic if you will not sleep with any of us. And so I think, well, I have what defense do I have against that then? Okay, in your eyes, in your eyes only, because the bar is so high that anything I do is going to be deemed that. So how do you win? I literally say to people, I make a distinction between transsexuals and the rest, because there were only transsexuals around, in the 80s in the clubs. Not very many. Some of them were the entertainers, but they were all very different to the ones of today because they were proud of being transsexual and they used to say, I'm transsexual. So, as a gay guy, you don't bat an eyelid.
So you as a gay guy not wanting to sleep with a woman who's had sort of I guess sort of an appendage put on, would make you transphobic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Apparently. I mean, and they talk about us reducing everything to genitals. Well, by making this point, they're entirely missing the point of what makes one sexy. Or as that, when you met your wife, you must have noticed a look in her eye, the way she smiled at you, the way she tucked her hair, the way she.
Well, post-op, yeah.
Yeah, no.
I apologise to my new wife that I've suggested she's trans. I don't want to start a Candace Owens kind of because she was saying that. Candace Owens was saying, "Did you see that with Macron's wife?" Candace Owens, you know who she is?
I do know who she is, yes.
Lunatic. And who was very good on the trans stuff and then started saying loony things recently.
Oh, yes. Yes, I have. Okay, I know what you're talking
Christ
about.
is king and all of that stuff.
Yes.
And not that any religious Christian people should be offended. I'm not suggesting Christ isn't king, but it's, I'm an atheist. But it's a minefield. You don't want to offend them and I'll be out of that tribe as well. And everyone's going to be upset with me. She put out this big breaking news. Macron's wife is a man, and there's no evidence, and it got millions of views. And I don't know if they should sue her. To be honest, she's just gone off the.
Well,
but
that's crazy.
Yeah. Well, next she'll be saying my wife's that because I've made that joke. So
yeah. I apologize.
What-
but the point I was making is it's that which makes someone sexy. It's the way they look at you. It's their eyelashes. It's the thing. But it comes from which sex you're attracted to, which is why I always knew that. Well, from a certain age, I knew that I was gay. I was attracted to men, but not because they just had a cock. That's not, obviously that comes with the package. But the fact of the matter is, it's what's the first thing you look at? Their face, the eyes, the nose, the little gestures. That's what makes you attracted. So it's nothing to do with, the first thing you do when you meet someone is go, can I just check? Can I see your cock? Okay, I've seen that. I didn't see one that's like, now I'll look at your face. It doesn't work like that. You look at people's, you flirt, and that's how it works. So it's funny that they accuse us of being genital obsessed when it's actually entirely the other way around.
Do you remember the first time that you realised you might be gay? Because I would have been scared.
Oh, yeah. Oh, listen, Andrew. When I knew when I was quite young, I guess I was sort of 9. I didn't know. All I knew was that I would fancy. I always liked looking at the men in the papers or whatever. But I remember sitting on my bed, age 6. It must have been 15 or 16, and it was right in the middle of the AIDS crisis that was going on. And I remember sitting in my bedroom, sitting on my bed, and panicking, really panicking, and thinking, God, I can never, ever tell anyone this, ever, ever. It was that serious. And
so sad.
And it was because it was at that time where you open the newspapers every day, and you just saw how they were outing people. They were outing sick gay men. They were desperate to find out. And when we were, that was, you want to talk about marginalization. Not one company, not one advert, not one cover of a magazine, not one newspaper, not one mainstream media, nothing, no anywhere supporting us. Now, if the new group now are marginalized, what was that in the 80s? What was that? Because that's marginalized, that's true marginalization. I don't think there's an equivalent word at the moment, because everything seems to be celebrated by everyone. So this is another thing I struggle with, is this word of, the most marginalized, vulnerable group. But, I'm sure some are. But on the whole, no.
When you're that age, you don't know what your sexuality is. And when I'm 11 years old, I thought, what if I'm gay? And that was later, probably 20 years after you, when I was 11, what was that, year 2000 or something? And I was just petrified by the thought of that.
Yeah.
Like, what if I'm gay? Oh God, what will people do to me? Whereas today, what if I was trans? Well, I'd be on the front cover of every paper. Everyone's celebrating world's bravest person on time. Yeah. And great that it's moved away. I mean, it's not bad that it's moved away from what it was, but bloody hell. To say you're still a victim at that point, it's just such an attractive thing to be a victim, I suppose.
It is, and now it's celebrated. Once upon. I remember I was one of the first people in my crowd to get tattoos. Because back in the 80s, yes, people had tattoos, but not like they have tattoos today, where it's unusual if you do not have one. But I remember getting one, and I remember thinking, and I would wear cut-off shirts, for goodness sake, in the winter, just because I wanted to show off my stupid little tattoo.
What is it? What have you got?
Well, the first one I got was a spider, but I have my arms done. Not sleeves. Don't like them. They're just different things from different areas of my life. But
Yeah.
the first one, for some reason, was a spider.
Petrifying.
A red widow.
Spider.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Black widow. Why I did that.
Yeah.
But anyway, I used to show it off, Now, the celebration of actually marking your skin or wearing your, if you have an infirmity or if you have ADHD or it's like the more stuff you have, which is a very weird thing to do. I mean, I understand telling people if you have ADHD or whatever, I get it, but there seems to be a sort of a list and a sort of kudos to it now that there never was before.
A replacement for personality as well.
Well, yeah, and as Andrew Doyle talks about, a social contagion. It's something and it's spread like sort of Tamagotchis, Pokemon. Got to get them all. Got to have them all. And it's and basically when someone says to me, dressed like a goth, I'm non-binary, I think, well, yeah, you're a goth.
But maybe boring.
And maybe a little bit, well, not boring, just sort of, it was much more interesting when people just did things for no reason because they felt like it, rather than having to put a label on it and go, well, this is what I am. That's all I am. I think the least interesting thing about me, lots of annoying things about me, lots of okay things about me, but the least interesting is my sexuality. Boring.
Yeah.
Bored with it. Don't want to talk about it anymore. I'm so fed up with it. And I thought that's the way we were going, but no, we're teaching the children, listen, you gotta have something wrong, and I don't get it. I don't get how so many people are cheering this on.
Well, we just fall in line, don't we? And well, are there people then siding with you? You talked about the secret messages, but there's also, you're still employed as an actor. You still have some big, are you getting big jobs and things?
Well, no, not big.
Well, people have a go at you on Twitter. I've seen this. They're having a go at you and they're going like, oh, look at you, you're not getting the jobs. And it's like, well, you're sort of proving James's point here, like because of what's kicking off.
It's odd because the people who say that are usually the people that tag in my employers and try and get me fired. So I think, well, yeah, of course, I didn't work for a few years because, but I've got a couple of movies coming out. Whether I do another series of House of the Dragon, I don't know. I've just done a small part in the first, which is reoccurring each week, but it's just a small part. And still, they were trying to. They said, as one of them wrote, oh, he's putting me off it. He's putting me off the show. And I said, it hasn't even started yet, so why'd you neck him? I mean, these people are just...
Do you feel an awkwardness on set with not knowing what some people's politics might be?
No, I knew what people's politics was. I just don't bring it up. This is why I think taking your authentic self to work is the most stupid idea you could do. I don't bring it up. I don't discuss these things at work. At work, I try and remember my lines. I have a laugh with my fellow actors. I've worked in the profession that, politically I move around in my head and, I've had to work with people that I just disagree with completely on issues. And I think, but you know what? You make it work because you have to work with them. So that's the whole point. You don't bring your entire self to work. You hold back on that so you can actually get work done. The moment you start, doing what you want to do, it reminds me of that Simpsons episode. I don't know if you've ever saw it, but there's an episode of Do What You Want Day, where the whole town decides, the whole of Springfield decides, I'm going to do what feels right. And, so I won't, and the whole town falls apart.
Yeah.
Because, that's rather a bit. The whole town just falls to pieces because everyone's doing what makes them feel good. And I thought, how prescient, how amazing, because this must have been, I don't know, 25 years ago. But this is sort of what it seems like now.
People just do what they want. Well,
just do what you want.
Still, people, even though you don't bring that self to work, people know who you are. And I think I would struggle to act knowing that this person thinks I'm Hitler.
Well, yeah. I mean, yes, I have been there. But you know what? I just act like myself. And I've had people, I've worked with some younger actors who said, God, I thought you'd be really horrible.
Mm.
And I said, why? Why do you think that? After 3 weeks, I said, why would you think that? Well, I thought you'd be really sort of transphobic and horrible. And I said, well, you've known me for 3 weeks. You could have asked me something about this before. But yeah, I have said that, or people come up to me saying, I disagree with your position about this. And I'm like, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But right now, we're about to go and film a scene in there, and I have to remember 3 lines, which is hard enough at the moment.
Yeah.
So it is a bit difficult, but you just think, there's nothing I can do about it. Or you just act normally, and they soon go, oh, well, perhaps you're not Hitler.
We had I had a bookshop signing, and it was the only one who let me in their bookshop, right? And the only reason they did, I think, is because they'd already agreed it before everyone started cancelling me, and it was a bit too late. And they'd even said to me a couple of days before, I was on the phone to them, and they said, yes, tell your YouTube people, because they hadn't looked at what the YouTube was. So tell them all to come. We'll have a big book signing. There'll be hundreds of people, because I'd never done a public thing, and there's hundreds of thousands of subscribers. A lot of people could come down. And they were excited, and they said, yes, please. So I went and did the call to everyone, please come down this time. And then the next day, Pam McMillan said, just before I was going, they've suddenly decided it has to be a closed thing.
I spoke to you that day.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, on the phone.
I spoke to you on the phone.
Yes.
And you said they just put me behind a thing. Yeah, I remember that.
Closed off private space.
How did that make you feel?
Awful.
Yeah.
Awful and angry. But also I had a very, my defensive mechanism is a sort of kill them with kindness. They think I'm Hitler. I'm going to walk in and hold the door open for, not that I wouldn't do that anyway, but hold the door. How are you doing? So, oh yeah, thank you to every single person in the place. And it was the woman who was them was the woman, the organizer. And this is just a bitter person, unfortunately, because that person came and spoke to me briefly, and just sort of every stereotype came out, because she even sort of started saying, like, so got into podcasting, did you? Quite difficult to get into without a bit of money behind it. She was making these sort of, because everything becomes victim and oppressor. So I must have had some sort of money, some sort of trust fund or whatever to start the podcast, which is not true. I was working many minimum wage jobs at the same time as starting the podcast. So, and then she described herself, said, well, I'm a first gen student at the university, she was. And I was like, what a first gen? And she walked off, and I had to think about what that meant. And again, this is something people have started saying. I'm a first genner. I'm a first gen at university. That your parents didn't go to university, so you should somehow. It's amazing that you even got in, because you didn't have. You're the first generation of your family. I was the first in mine. It never crossed my mind. The idea of my parents at university is comical. But it didn't. Everyone goes to university now. If you really want to go, pretty much most people can in the UK, not in the US, because of the money. But
that's extraordinary. I've never heard that.
Yeah,
I had never heard that.
And by the time I was going to respond and say, "Well, me too," she'd walked off, or I should say, they walked off.
But this is a horrible thing to hear, because who has the power in this relationship? You have zero power. That's the frightening thing.
Yeah.
Is her word will come over yours every time at the moment.
Yeah.
And you have to say to yourself, how are we ever going to get out of this if all the power is given to the one person who might suspect or doesn't like your views and makes it perfectly obvious? How could you be in a regularly employed job with a person like that?
Oh.
You'd be down HR every other day, and we can't tell you who's complained about you, but bloody well it's Plimsoll sitting on Dustgate.
Yeah. The only thing I'd say is that those people tend to be bitter, and they tend to have, I like this philosophy of the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset. And I do think there's something in the growth mindset is a type of person who has loads and loads of knockbacks and doesn't assume it's just because everyone hated them or just because everyone was against them, and says, even if that's true, I'm going to get up again and go. And those people succeed. Yeah. The fixed mindset says, well, I've tried, everyone just hates me because I'm this color or this sexuality, and they don't succeed. So I think those people don't succeed as often. I
think you're right. And I think looking at it like that is a very good way of looking at it. And it's sort of the way I was brought up to think about things. My mother always said to me, you don't judge people by the color of their skin. You don't judge the people where they come from. You don't judge them. You look at the content of their character.
100%.
And if they're no, this is why some fights I get into with some trans people, and people say you're transphobic. I'm like, no, the fact that they're trans is irrelevant. It's the fact that they're bloody horrible people, and that's all I'm interested in. I'm only interested in that. It's how I was brought up. I cannot change that. But I don't think many people are taught that nowadays. I don't think that's the way. This is why I think critical race theory is dangerous. Queer theory is dangerous because it promises you have to compartmentalize everything and forces you to step back and go and question the things that happen naturally. Why do I like this person? Well, I just like them. I just like them. They're kind. It's a very weird thing now, and I find it very hard to keep up with. I know people say to me, "Oh, is it, do you hate Sadiq Khan because he's Asian?" No, I hate him because I think he's bloody awful.
Yeah.
As a mayor, I don't care about that other side. That's not the point I'm making. But you can't comment nowadays on anything like that without being called
phobic.
Hitler.
Yeah, they say at the last steps of any civilization are when it begins to analyze itself so much that it gets into a mess.
Yeah, well, I think we're probably there, aren't we? I mean, or getting pretty close.
Feels like,
but with podcasts like this,
positive,
we might be turning things around.
That's a good positive angle. I've got one more question for you, but first, tell me, where can people follow you and check out your work? Where do you want to send some people?
Oh, well, I mean, only if they want to. I'm only on one place. I'm only on X at James Dreyfus. That's the only place. They've set up false accounts elsewhere, so anything that you see anywhere else is not me.
Okay,
it's just the one account, and I mean, I guess things just go there, don't they?
Well, you're one of my favorite people to follow. I really mean that, and my day wouldn't be complete without seeing your tweets. So I hope anyone who likes this material will really enjoy following you. So I hope they do go and follow you over on X, James Dreyfus. Who is a heretic you admire?
Do I have to pick one?
Not necessarily.
JK Rowling, Douglas Murray, Ricky Gervais. You. There you go.
You're one of mine.
I'm giving.
You're one of mine.
Oh well, and I'll add Andrew Doyle and Dennis Kavanagh and Fred Sargent, and I could give you a whole list. But
problem is, the bigger the list, the more offended the people who aren't on the list become.
I know, that's why I should never ever get involved in lists. I should have just ignored that.
I'm in wedding mode as well.
The
lists. It's like we could have just 10 people. No one's going to be offended. Well, my mum might if she's not invited. Right, I better invite my mum. Well, now there's 11 people, so my mate might be offended if he's not.
It's why I never do fast. I never do that. FF. Gonna leave out people. I think, oh no, I'm not going to hear about it, and you do. Oh well, maybe next week.
Oh God, it's been a pleasure. People, please go and follow James on. We'll put the link in there as well on X. Please do go and follow me. It's been an absolute delight, and keep watching the channel. Hit the like and subscribe. Keep watching stuff here with similar kinds of themes.